Welcome to another episode of the brand called You, a podcast and podcast show that brings you leadership lessons, knowledge, experience, and wisdom from thousands of successful individuals from around the world. I'm your host, Ashutosh Garg, and today I'm delighted to welcome a very well respected finance professional turned coach, a fellow member of the YPO from Vienna, Austria, Mr. Manfred Mahrle. Manfred, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Ashutosh, for having me.
Thank you. Manfred is the owner and chief executive officer of ActyMind GmbH. And as I mentioned, he's a fellow member of the YPO. So, Manfred, my first question to you, as you look back at your early career in auditing and corporate finance, what experiences have shaped your approach to leadership?
I came out of university very early into auditing. I started actually when I was still at uni, and then this for me was a traineeship on stage. You have a new company every week. There's so much to learn every single week, and then you have to move on to the next one. So in 3 years, you have seen 100 companies, and you take out what seems to work, and you try to avoid what doesn't seem to work, as far as you understand it in your mid-20s. So I think what transpired was an early exercise I did with a fellow YPO coach as well, named Ken, a guy called Ken Tyler, who helped us play our strength and find out our strength. Yeah. So I think what I did is double down on my strength, try to get my weaknesses out of the way of what I want to do, and then really try to double down and try to make a career by playing my strength.
Fascinating. You've also held leadership roles across different continents and cultures. What are some of the core values that have remained constant for you?
I think my own values would be an insatiable curiosity for people and ideas.
Mhm.
And that also comes in the strength. My strengths are context and learner, among other strengths. So I'm very interested always in meeting new people and in finding new models, seeing new ideas, and how to combine them into a win-win situation. Yeah, so I think this lifelong learning would be one of them, and also meeting new people across the continents. What they all have in common is a positive intent.
Yeah.
They all want to contribute,
Mm,
and oftentimes this is driven also by a strong sense of purpose.
mm.
And with this look at the human condition, that people have a positive intent, comes a high trust towards people.
Mm.
Yeah? As long as they don't deserve it anymore. So I think a smart trust approach, in really assuming positive intent on people, is a trait that gets you very far in this life. In the
Mm.
end, I think you know what it's about in YPO.
Mm.
We have a high trust community, and it always works.
Absolutely.
The organization is able to scale trust on an incredible level.
Well said. And after such a high profile senior career in the corporate world, what led you to transition out to found ActiMind and focus on coaching?
Yeah, I not only focus on coaching, I also invest some of the things I earned in my life
Yeah, yeah, of
into
course.
startups, and I like to work with the young
Yeah.
entrepreneurs. Looking back on my corporate career, I was a couple of years in auditing. I said, okay, enough learning, but probably that's not the path for me.
Mm.
And then I was 24 years in the same corporation, running a healthcare company, always in different roles. Yeah, so it's 20, not 24 years in the same role. Different roles, different countries. I've lived in. I lived in Asia for 4 years in Kuala Lumpur. That was a great opportunity. And after, call it midlife crisis, maybe at 50, you've seen so many cycles
Yeah.
of the same. Yeah, and then you experience a sort of stagnation. And I like forward momentum, so I think it's a good time to step out and try setting up my own company.
Absolutely.
And at that time, I already had upped my forum game. So I applied for to be a CFF because I love forum, and we might be talking about that later. And became a CFF in the year I left the company, and this took off. And then 2 years into my own company, I had Google Central Eastern Europe as a customer. So I thought, wow, this is really working well,
Yeah,
and off it went.
amazing. So let's now talk about coaching, mental fitness, and positive intelligence. Tell me, how do you define positive intelligence and how does this benefit leaders?
Yep, positive intelligence is based on a concept by a fellow YPO, Shirzad Chamine, if
Hmm.
you know him. He's from San Francisco.
Yeah.
And he wrote this book called Positive Intelligence, which is based on positive psychology and cognitive behavioral psychology and also neuroscience,
Mm.
and really simplified the usage of this concept
Mm.
in positive intelligence, which more or less says the ability to respond to life's challenges rather in a positive than a negative mindset.
Mm. Mm.
Positive being in a sage mode, that's what he calls it, sage. And negative is in saboteur mode, which is mostly fear driven. Yeah, you can also say the surviving mind and the thriving mind.
Mm.
Yeah, if you're a Star Wars fan, you could say one is Darth Vader working
Yeah.
with fear, and the other one is the Jedi
Mm.
working with the positive
Yeah.
things in life. So
Mm.
that's a good analogy, and that's usually how people understand it. So that's what positive intelligence is
Mm.
about. So it's
Yeah.
you need only three strategies to be mentally fit, which is to know and intercept your saboteurs,
Mm.
to get into the habit of finding your sage, and then cultivate that.
Mm. And you also a certified positive intelligence coach. How does this differentiate from the regular coaching, whether it's for executive coaching or leadership coaching or business coaching?
I think it pays into it, and there's a lot of synergies.
Mm.
My story with positive intelligence started when we had COVID,
Mm.
and we were all sitting at home, and Shirzad gave this coaching, this 7-week coaching course as a gift to YPOers. So,
Yeah.
and I tried it because I was sitting at home. The company was doing well. We were in medical devices and services, so it was doing exceptionally well in COVID, and I
Mm.
was super unhappy. And I tried this positive intelligence thing. And after 4 weeks, I should tell 4 weeks into the
Mm.
course, my wife said, I don't know what you're doing, but I like it, and keep on doing it.
Yeah.
So that's how I came towards it. And then as a learner, I said, oh, I want to know more about it. I backed down on it, and I became a positive intelligence coach. And I use the tools almost daily in my coaching practice.
Hmm. Amazing. You also said that you got yourself certified as a forum facilitator. How do you differentiate between coaching and facilitation in your practice?
I think the coaching is it depends on who you coach.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have executive coaching, you might have leadership coaching, and then you have forum facilitation. In executive coaching, I have a 3-month program into self mastery,
Hmm.
which a lot helps you understand, of course, your strength, your coping mechanisms, aka your saboteurs, your values, and then you find what might make your life really wonderful in the next couple of years. Yeah, many people don't have a life vision. Yeah,
Right.
they know their company vision and mission,
Yeah.
but if you ask them what is your life vision,
Hmm.
they don't know it. So I help them to create those life visions and really come out with something extraordinary. And this very much depends on the coachee situation. The
Yeah.
leadership coaching has a different set of tools.
Hmm.
And in forum facilitation, it's all about the peers. And we know that a forum which is newly established, they are struggling for the rules and for the guidance. How
Hmm.
can they do it? How they can get deep into emotion?
Hmm.
If a forum is together for so many years, and probably your own forum has been together for 30 plus years,
Hmm.
you might find a certain life cycle,
Absolutely.
and then you might find it helpful to induce new ideas into it because people think they know it all and don't want to try something new. So you get some facilitator to tickle
Right.
you a little, try something new. So probably that's the difference. It's all
Mm.
in the forum, it's all about the facilitating a peer coaching,
Mm.
where we can just take maybe an advice or an input so much
Mm.
easier
Mm.
than
Mm.
from another one.
Amazing. Could you also tell me a little bit about the concept of mental fitness in everyday terms?
So, mental fitness is the ability to respond to life's challenges rather in a positive than a negative mindset. Yeah, that's what we call mental fit, and you can actually measure it. Yeah, the thing is that oftentimes we are driven by fear-based saboteurs in our life, and fear is a very strong driver.
Mm.
Fear is driving us normally 5 times as much as some positive ideas.
Correct.
Yeah. The question is, do we still need it?
Mm.
Yeah. Because we are all here because our ancestors were fearful. Yeah. And they were running when the red snake is coming through the woods, and didn't think. Yeah. So that's what fear is about.
Right.
And today we don't need it so much anymore. So it's starting to sabotage us. Yeah.
Mm.
Biggest saboteur is the inner judge, that constantly compares and
Mm.
says you're not enough. Yeah. Or the others are stupid. Very quickly happens in 200 milliseconds.
Mm.
So in mental fitness or
Mm.
positive intelligence, which is used as a synonym, we're trying to overcome that, recognize that, and then move to the positive side.
Mm. Well said. And how do you help your own clients or coachees strengthen their mental muscles to combat stress and burnout?
By introducing them to the concept. Yeah, first I ask them to read the book. Yeah, and
Mhm.
oftentimes that's enough because people get it. The book is a very good text on this mental fitness.
Mhm.
Um, but you have to understand that the fear-based saboteur mode, the survival mind, is very deeply ingrained in our brain. Yeah?
Mm. Mm.
And what I try to teach is we have an extraordinary machine in our heads.
Yep.
Yeah, the brain is the most complex machine in the universe,
Mm.
consisting of 86 billion neurons, with up to 10,000 connections to
Mm.
others. So
Mm.
imagine the complexity of it. And most people have not learned how to use their own brain. So what I'm doing in mental fitness or positive intelligence, I teach them how to use their brain in a proper manner,
Mm.
to get resilient, to get more innovative, to get more empathy, and really to thrive in their lives.
Mm. Amazing. Um, Manfred, as a YPO master game plan coach, how do strategic planning and mental fitness intersect?
I think the strategic planning, it's all about clarity. And clarity is a very sage-driven concept,
Mm.
versus confusion, which would probably be a saboteur-driven concept.
Mm.
So every strategic planning, in the end, needs to come out with some clear objective, and guidelines and an alignment. So
Mm.
that's we do, as game plan coaches in YPO. I don't know if you're familiar with the
Right.
concept.
Mm.
It's basically bringing together the executive team, for one day to work on their goals for the year.
Yeah.
And the main idea is first the team building, having all these wonderful champions in a room for a full day,
Mm.
and then come out with an aligned agenda and not a silo agenda. Yeah?
Mm.
So, how do they intersect? Is probably the clarity over confusion. Yeah.
Well said. And what role does emotional intelligence play when you are, talking of mental fitness coaching?
The concepts are closely related,
Hmm.
but still distinct. So emotional intelligence, is perceive and understand emotions, awareness, and also regulation and motivation. And the mental fitness can also be measured. So there's a PQ, a positive intelligence quotient.
Hmm.
Yeah? And this one measures how often in your life are you in fear-driven versus positive-driven? So,
Mm,
and if the fear-driven is over a certain ratio,
mm,
then chances are that the saboteurs are taking out energy of your life.
mm,
Yeah. So how they play a role is, let's say, take the synergies of both concepts
mm,
and in the end make it into something valuable.
Amazing. You're also a big advocate of servant leadership. How does that fit into mental fitness?
What servant leadership is about is asking the question, what can I do in order to support you?
Right.
Yeah. And this is a very also sage-driven concept
Mm,
versus an ego-driven concept, which might be more in the fear-driven version. Yeah, asking the question, how do others see me? Yeah, this is fear. Yeah, and there's this restless, this fear of missing out that many of our kids know. Yeah,
mm,
turning it into the joy of missing out, which is a
mm,
concept which I heard recently, and I really embrace it because I was the one always fearing of missing out things. Yeah?
mm,
So I think that if you combine those two, you have a winning combination here.
Well said. Manfred, what are some challenges organizations face when trying to embed mental fitness practices at a large scale?
I worked with big companies, and the problem is always if companies set up a program and then send people there, and people might not be ready, yeah, and they just come to a program because somebody else said, hey, do this program, it's good for you.
Yep.
And I refuse to work with people that are being sent without them knowing exactly what they get themselves into.
Yep.
Yeah. Um, these are oftentimes this program is quite expensive per person, but if the company pays for it, I ask the participants really,
Mm,
you must come ready to work on yourself.
mm,
You must come ready to face your inner saboteurs. You must come ready to face your judge, your inner judge, and that might be painful.
mm,
It has to do a lot with psychological maturity, I would say,
mhm,
even if you can do it with young kids as well, if they're open for it. But I've seen people who say, leave me alone. I love my saboteurs,
mm,
and I need them to make me successful.
mm.
And then it's fine. Yeah. Then the program is probably not the right program for you.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So you must be ready to go for it. If you're not, don't join the program. So
Mm,
that would be probably the biggest challenge of an organization. Otherwise, it works just fine because people get it from the first minute and understand that it's a really good life tool beyond just a company tool.
absolutely. Time for three more questions for you. From your experience, how can coaching contribute to organizational transformation?
I think it can and it does.
Hmm.
And everybody should have a coach. You
Hmm.
know, I've been swimming now for almost 50 years. So that's one skill I really do well, and I think I put in my 10,000 hours and won medals at European and World Championships.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
still, I have a coach
Hmm.
who holds me accountable, yeah, who stands on the side and takes also my time, gives me direction because
Hmm.
I'm far from perfect.
Yeah.
And I think in a business setting, we all need coaches. And it doesn't have to be the official external coach. It can be a coworker. It can be a group of peers that you
Yeah.
trust that
Hmm.
might be diverse. Yeah. And it can be our YPO forum. Yeah.
Hmm.
These are our coaches. So I think nobody does it alone, and the coach can always help. Yeah.
Hmm. Amazing. How do you align your coaching intervention with broader business goals and strategy?
I think the answer to that question must be it depends.
Hmm.
Because you have a different target group, you
Yep.
have different settings,
Hmm.
you have and
Hmm.
different strategies. If I coach um, a business owner who is thinking about his legacy of the company, handing it over to the next generation, you have a different set of tools that you need and a different set of questions that you ask
Right.
than a hired gun who needs to juggle stakeholder management and maybe bureaucracy or politics in the company. Yeah. So it always depends on the goals. And I think the art of coaching is tickling the right questions because
Mm.
all the answers are within the coachee already. So
Correct.
that's the premise or the basic understanding of
Mm.
coaching. Yeah.
Mm.
So it's always the art of asking the right questions.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And my last question for you, Manfred, can you share an example of how positive intelligence coaching transformed a leadership team's performance?
I can share many examples of that. Um, Probably one of the best examples was with a group of a company of mine in when I was still in corporate. I started to implement that concept,
Mm.
and this was a company which was traditionally very hierarchically led, and we established a management team consisting of the second tier management moving into a management team for common decisions, so flatten the hierarchy.
Mhm.
So, and I put them through the 7 week positive intelligence program. And it was quite amazing because in that program, it's I would say it's a team building on steroids because people immediately get into emotional sharing and also establish a huge trust environment. So the
Mm.
team was able to perform probably in week 6 of that 7 week program, also very, very good on a corporate level
Mm.
and earning this trust dividend that you have in a high trust environment. You
Mm.
know, when people trust each other, all the things are just so much easier because
Yeah.
you don't have to question decisions or have to question motives.
Mm.
Everything just falls in place and works.
Mm. Well said.
Yeah.
Well said. And on that note, Manfred, I just want to say what an amazing conversation this has been. Thank you for sharing with me your own journey and your own motivations to start ActyMind. I think we covered some very, very interesting ground on coaching, mental fitness, and positive intelligence. And I'm going to ask our viewers and listeners to reach out and read that book which you have been speaking about. But we covered some interesting thoughts from you on positive intelligence, on servant leadership, on mental fitness, on the YPO master game plan, and emotional intelligence. Thank you for speaking to me and good luck to you.
Thank you very much, Ashutosh. It was a
Thank,
pleasure.
thank you. Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the brand called You.